Move it over. Yep, that's right. That's too funny. Greg, I stopped by to see you yesterday because I had an intern, but you weren't there.
That must have been something.
No way.
Yesterday was pretty good.
It was nothing. There was nothing.
Okay.
I was a Scarborough High School student around.
Oh, very cool.
King staff did a study budget.
Could have showed them our very under construction cabinet room. Or one of the million projects.
Your delegation.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah, they must have been doing the wiring. You were stop by, or was that the day before yesterday?
Might have been the day before. I did not see any wire.
Okay. Oh, man.
Energetic and.
No. Not fun.
Yeah.
No, in my office manager,
I mean, I don't.
been
Yeah.
very involved in the cabinet room,
Like
yeah,
presents.
in the cabinet room project that has been
Yeah, they
ongoing.
just don't have their, they don't have. flyers.
We're,
Very close to
They have
finishing
children,
that,
They have.
we need to renovate.
Other things, like,
Nash
I mean, they
School
couldn't
because
go
it has
to
no
that.
elevator
yeah.
and it really needs to have one.
Mhm.
And, that may entail relocating.
Yeah,
I was
that's
like, till after.
I was gonna say, when do your terms run out, then.
Taylor and I, and there's one other, is this, oh, there's his name, I don't know who he
I
is.
can run it from,
Okay, great.
but otherwise, I think we're good to go.
So I'm not sure, like, the closest I found someone who's been at museums in Michigan or Wisconsin, so I don't know if that's the right person or not.
Hmm.
No, I feel me, no.
Normally you get a thing that tells you.
I mean, here too, but no.
When is it?
Couple days to house. Yeah, big one.
Yeah, awesome. Let's do it. Great. Well, welcome everyone. And it's always great to see folks online and in person. Oh, wait. We're good. All right, go for it. Yeah. Okay, excellent. So I want to start with introductions and have everybody in the room introduce themselves, and then all of our members online introduce themselves. And then I see we have a number of observers, which is always exciting. And we have one new member. Is she with us online? Let's see that.
No, I don't
Okay.
think that's, I
Okay,
don't think.
so we do have two potential new members. So we have two changes to our commission, just in terms of people's changes in roles. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's just go around and do the room first, and then Sarah walk us through our members online, and then we'll walk us through our guests, just so that the members can see who is coming in as observers. So Shanna Bellows, Secretary of State and Chair.
Bernard Fishman, Director of the Maine State Museum.
Greg Pierce, I'm with the governor's office.
Kirk Money, Director of the Maine Historic Preservation Commission.
Christian Coates, acting Maine State Archivist.
Julia Gray, Executive Director, Wilson Museum, Commission Member.
And I'm Sarah Hanson. I'm the Director of Special Projects here at Maine State Archives. So I think, so Earl is online. Earl, do you want to introduce yourself?
Earl Shuttleworth, Maine State Historian.
Peter?
You want to move this one?
Peter Merrill, Maine State Cultural Affairs Council.
I think it's Allison.
Abby.
Yeah, Abby.
Hi, Abby Levin, Cultural Heritage Tourism Coordinator with the Maine Office of Tourism and a commission member. Thanks.
Abby. Richard? Oh, Richard has stepped away from his desk. So.
Anyone else that we're not seeing who's online from the commission itself? I don't think so.
Yes, this is Kathy Moisen and Roberta Williams. We're with the Lincoln Historical Society.
Wonderful. Thank you for being guests today. So we can
Thank
move
you.
into guests. I see a Kimberly Smith.
Yes, good afternoon. I am with Presque Isle Historical Society and the City of Presque Isle.
Wonderful. I see a Jeanette Watts.
Whatever's going to be me, my phone.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hi, Jeanette Watts. I'm a historical dance instructor that does dancing for various areas, including 1776. So
Fun.
I'm actually not in Maine. I aspire to be from New England. As soon as I can figure out how to get there.
We'll take it. Maine is the way life should be. Christina Bear?
I'm Christina and I'm the historian for the Bureau of Parks and Lands.
Wonderful. Marie?
Hi, I am Marie Yarborough. I am the curator at Acadia National Park.
Great. Jim's iPhone. Jim, can you share your last name?
James Jackson. Yeah, I'm the president of Machias Historical Society, home of the first naval battle of the Revolution.
And I'm with Jim, Frank Rodriguez, and I'm with the Machias Port Historical Society. So we're on this call together.
Excellent. I was just talking with somebody recently. The history of Machias is really important to the 250th. So this is, I'm glad to have you. I mean, the whole
Thank you.
state, but our days are amazing. Pat?
Hi, I'm Pat Claus. I'm a member of the Majabigwadus chapter of the Maine State DAR, and I'm just here to observe.
Peggy?
Hi, I'm Peggy Konitsky. I am Historic New England's Mid-Coast Maine site manager for Bowman House, Castle Tucker, Nicholas Sortwell House, and Merritt House. I hope I didn't forget anyone.
Terrific. Scott?
Yeah, I'm Scott Craig. I am the vice chairman of the General Henry Knox Museum in Thomaston, Maine.
Wait, is that Robert? I can't see the names on the top line. This is where I get my glasses.
Brian? Oh, Brian, you're on mute.
Sorry, Brian Knobloch, a board member for the Falmouth Historic Society.
Great, thanks. Penelope?
Hi there, everyone. Penelope Hamlin with Spirits Alive at Eastern Cemetery in Portland, and I'm very happy to hear the correct pronunciation of Majabigwadus.
I didn't print everything out, just a few items.
And Richard, welcome back. Do you want to introduce yourself as a commission member?
Yeah, I apologize. My name is Richard LaBelle. I'm the town manager of Norridgewock. I am the governor's appointee to represent Maine's municipalities, our towns and cities. And I will apologize in advance as I come and go. I have a pet alpaca that's trying to leave his earthly world. And so I've got a garage full of folks, but I'm tuning in while I can. So thank you for your understanding.
Joining us. Yeah, sorry about that. That's really tough.
Allison is
the Lord. Great, yeah.
Allison, do you want to say hi?
Sure. So I'm Allison Maxell with the Maine State Library. I'm sitting in for State Librarian Lori Fisher, who's on the commission.
Wonderful.
Thanks. And then Valerie, if you're, I know you just joined us. We're just doing introductions. If you're in a spot, you can do that.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. And I do just want to share, we're going to have 2 new members. So the governor has just appointed Beth Lambert from the Department of Education to represent the Department of Education. Kelly isn't able to continue in the role as the educational representative. And the speaker has just appointed Sama from the Humanities Council to replace Robin Talbot, who had to step down because of other commitments and an inability to participate. So I'm hopeful that at our next meeting, we'll have those 2 appointments and they'll be part of our work. Are there any other, so first on the agenda, review and approval of the meeting minutes from December 11th. Anybody have a motion? I'll take the motion. The motion is in order.
I'll make a motion.
All right, motion to approve.
Second motion.
Great, seconded. Any discussion on the minutes from the December meeting?
Just one little edit. It's Carol Ann, not Caroline, from Maine Office of Tourism. So it's like Carol ANN.
Okay, good. I'll find that. Thank you for catching that.
And also my name is just one L, so
Okay.
that's Alice. Yeah.
Great. So move is amended. Any other corrections, edits, questions? All right. All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none. Any abstentions? Seeing none, okay, that's approved. Are there any other staffing updates that you wanted to, oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, the big one, Kate McBrien has agreed to be my chief of staff, and with my chief deputy secretary of state, meaning that if for any reason I were unavailable or incapacitated, she would be the secretary of state. And I'm really grateful that she's willing to do that. Our department really is welcoming her leadership in that role. That meant that we needed a new state archivist, and we are doing a national search for a permanent state archivist, but Kristen Coates has agreed to be our interim state archivist, and very grateful for that. Kristen, if you want to share, I think what I was most excited about was in a very short time at the First Amendment Museum, sort of created a statewide presence and really positive, strong statewide relationships.
Thank you.
And he's been doing an excellent job producing testimony and documents on demand for the legislature as we try to keep them grounded in our state's history, as we review potential bills. So Christian, anything else you want to share? Yeah, go for it.
No, it's just been a fascinating learning experience being here at the archives and sort of drinking from the fire hose and learning the ins and outs of state government and how all the sausage is made. So I've really been enjoying it and really enjoying the people I'm working with too. So I'm grateful for the opportunity.
The legislation states that the state archivist is a member of the commission, and so Christian is our new member. Kate will continue to serve on the executive committee, which is a appointed role by me, so she'll continue to be involved in the work with Sarah, and she wanted to be here today, but she has another conflict that she couldn't reschedule. So she'll continue to be part of the process, but in that different capacity. The next update is the biennial budget request. So unfortunately, the $250,000 that we requested in the biennial budget did not make it into the proposed governor's budget. That being said, we talked to a legislator who graciously agreed to introduce that for us, Randall Greenwood of Monmouth, and he's on the State and Local Government Committee. He's the ranking Republican member. We're really grateful to have that support from him. That bill has not been printed, but it is a bill. It's a funding vehicle for the activities of the commission. And so grateful that he's willing to sponsor that initiative, to have resources for the commission. And we will see what happens. I will say it is a very difficult budget environment. The resources from the federal government are constrained across many areas, and either on pause or being reduced or potentially eliminated. And that I think is going to have a ripple effect in the state of Maine. And we're also seeing revenues are somewhat flat. So it's just a sobering reminder. And I think, to all of our friends who are in local initiatives, I think one of the things this commission had hoped to do was find ways to be, supportive financially, as well as with our ability to publicize and promote and connect your events. At this point in time, that looks unlikely, unless we're successful in getting this bill through, and then we'll see what happens. And that's just the reality there. So I will keep the commission members and interested parties apprised through Sarah of when the bill to fund the commission is printed, and then we will advocate for it. And certainly any commission member or any interested party who wanted to support that bill could testify at the public hearing. Maine is unique in that every bill that is introduced gets a public hearing, and every bill that is introduced gets a committee vote, and then would go to the House and the Senate, and then would go to the appropriations table, where it would be a bit of a contest with the other things that go to the appropriations table. Many people in this room and online are familiar with that process, but we will do everything that we can to support it, and we'll see what happens. Any questions on the biennial budget request or the bill?
Have there been a request as part of the interim, but I don't know, I'm forgetting the right
The
word.
supplemental.
Supplemental thing.
Yeah, we also made a request for the supplemental that was also not included. don't take it personally, even things that were included, proposed by, the governor's budget, including funding for ballots that we already spent last November that were in a deficit because of, did not get funded by the legislature, and there's still a little bit in an impasse right now.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, that was, two unfortunate pieces of bad news that happened since our last meeting.
We're not surprised though.
We had modest
We-
expectations. And it makes, I think, the power of collaboration and the work of the commission even more important, because much of our work is going to be grounded in what we as a team are able to, resources we're able to leverage from other sources, and how we're able to support and lift up things that are happening locally through our combined efforts. So, and the good news is we have a full-time staff.
Yeah.
So Sarah is available to work and to do that outreach and connection with groups and provide technical expertise and potentially connections to other resources and connect people. Yeah. And speaking of connecting people and leveraging resources, so that's the bad news, but let's get to the good news.
We have some good news.
We have
yeah,
some
sorry.
very good news, and this is also coming out of the administration, for which we are grateful to
Yeah.
the governor and the Maine Office of Tourism. So thank you, Greg, for any help behind the scenes. This is
I
great.
can say that I did more on that, but yeah.
Own it. Just own it. Okay, so, can everybody see the screen? Okay, I know it's really tiny here. Let me. That's slightly better, but only slightly. Okay, so the good. Sorry, let's keep going back and forth. So the really good news is, I think last time we had talked about the fact that we had submitted a proposal to Maine Office of Tourism, met with Carol Ann about this concept of doing a Maine Atlas. And the proposal, as you can see here on the screen, was to identify 250 unique places, historic sites, people, objects, everything possible, tangible that that you can find that defines Maine. And I am delighted to let you know that on Monday, we found out that we've been approved for $200,000, which is almost what we asked for. But no, we are absolutely delighted. I'm really, really excited about this project. We had asked for $250,000. And so we are about obviously $50,000 short from what we had hoped. So if we can find $50,000 just sitting somewhere, that would be amazing. If not, obviously we're gonna have to make some cuts. And we're gonna work that out. Again, this is brand new news. So we'll get $100,000 starting in July 2025, and then another $100,000 the year following. So the plan will be between now and when the funding commences, we're going to be doing a lot of community outreach, working to reach everybody in Maine to get to talk about what these 250 things are. I'm going to be at the Maine Office of Tourism, or the Governor's Conference on Tourism, in April. We've got a table there, so we'll be collecting stuff there. We should be we're gonna have a website hopefully in April, and we're gonna be launching social media platforms shortly. So we'll be doing a lot of outreach that way too. But any and all help, again, is greatly appreciated. So the concept again is to identify these 250 things and then do as much on-site photography, filming, storytelling as we can to develop vignettes and sort of record all of this for posterity. So, yeah.
Well, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
If you said how it's gonna be presented?
I had no, so that's a good question. So our proposal had all of this living online virtually. So on our website, Maine Office of Tourism obviously will own all of this content too, and we'll be able to use it and promote it throughout 2026. So social media, YouTube, having a presence, it will live on our website. We're gonna hopefully have kind of we're working on the mapping component so that we're hoping that will be able to plan trips around some of these, seeing some of these things too. So that's all a little bit TBD, just because we just haven't worked all of that out yet. But we should be getting a contract soon, and as all of this starts to kick off, we'll keep you in the loop. But I'm really jazzed. I'm really excited. I think this is going to be a super
great.
fun project, really cool. And I think this is going to be a really fun way to engage the public too. So.
Do folks online have questions or, and I know we're admitting someone else into from the waiting room.
Yeah.
Questions about this proposal, anything that anyone online would like to ask?
Who will be in charge of this project?
So we will, me, I guess, and we'll be working with contractors. Part of the funding is gonna go to hiring people to help us with videography, filming, storytelling, photography. So we'll be working with contract staff to help get all of that done. So.
And the plan for deciding on the 250 when you get 500?
Yeah, right, I know. That is also a very good question. We have not worked that out yet. I don't know. But I think that will be a really fun problem to have. But I think it will be the commission ultimately who would be the deciding votes. And obviously there's more than 250 amazing spots in the state. So, we'll start with 250 and then hopefully this project also will live on, which would be really great. Peggy, I see your question about how you get to be one of the 250. Excellent question. We're gonna have nominations. And so again, this news is only about 48 hours old, so we're still a lot of kinks to work out and just plans to make. So we will let everybody know as soon as we know.
I know people can see it, but if you're can you just hit the top 5 points there for people?
Sure. So, we're gonna identify these 250 people, places, objects, sites that represent Maine. These could be a lot of different things, including businesses, people, parks, landscapes, historic sites, historic buildings, festivals, fairs, all those kinds of things. Language, I think, would be a really interesting one too. And then significant cultural centers and makers. So that's kind of a broad overview of what we're hoping to identify. And then we're gonna create a statewide campaign with the videography, photography, doing a lot of storytelling. And these, will go out in different ways, depending on the media partners that we also get. And then we're gonna obviously feature all of that online, create trip plans around it, so we can give people tips on how and when and where to explore. And then I think one of the best things about this is obviously the collaboration, and working with all the local communities and businesses, other state agencies, and really highlighting a lot of different things that are going on around the state, especially in 2026. So that's sort of the big thing. And like the part on the right is the phase 1 that we had outlined. So that's kind of what will start happening now once we're under contract, is that community outreach, to try and connect with everybody.
And I think that leads to the next question, from Brian. Will you want completed video project? Will you edit it? Will there be guidelines? And I think the answer is yes, there will be guidelines. And
I think we'll be doing a lot of that too. It's not necessarily you would need to submit that. I think once we identify the 250 places, we're gonna figure out where we can be, when, and how much we can do per. Obviously, we can't do all 250 in a robust way. But that's a great question, Brian, and I'm going to scroll up because I think I missed.
And so there's some feedback from Pat with an idea, and I think I think this is what we're hoping, is that it'll be really generative. We want the 250th anniversary commemorations to be as inclusive as possible. So we want people to be thinking about unique ways and unique individuals that should be honored and remembered and celebrated.
Yeah. And
so-
Pat, I agree, that's a great story, so thanks for highlighting that. And then Valerie, I see your hand is up.
Valerie, do you want to unmute yourself and speak? Or is it a 2 thumbs up?
Sometimes you get the hands up icon just by moving.
Just
your hand.
the, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can come back to you about.
Are there any other questions, feedback? Again, we'll have more details. And to your point, we'll have to just think through the funding gap there.
Right, yeah.
But any other questions that anybody has?
Another question, Sarah, but the National Heritage Area is gonna be doing our community outreach this spring, early summer. So if there's something we can include in that,
Yeah.
that would be a good opportunity. It's only Hancock and Washington County, but the most important ones, but that's my guide.
Not that you're buying.
But between Hancock, Washington is a lot of certainly revolutionary history, but and fascinating historical stories. But that if there's like a handout or a QR code to a link or something like that we can include in our community meetings, which are going to be probably smaller community meetings. We've talked about big ones, but it's looking like we're going to try and be a little bit smaller and all over the area. So
Perfect, that's great. Yeah, whatever we develop for the tourism conference, because we want to start collecting and also like push all of this out there. So I'm imagining a QR code handout that will lead people somewhere. I'm not sure the website will be quite done yet by that point, but certainly at least.
also, we're going into this with, because of the nomination, the creation process of the National Heritage Area, there was a huge initial inventory of cultural heritage resources that was developed, so.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of existing resources too that we can pull from too.
Here's a good question.
Can you hear me now? Can you
Oh,
hear
yeah,
me?
go for it.
Oh, yeah, hi Valerie. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm just coming from another Zoom meeting and I came to you late, so I didn't hear all the directions. But I'd like, first of all, my earlier comment was, I like what you're doing here. I am curious, even though Maine was part of Massachusetts at the time of the Declaration of Independence, we still had some involvement in the War for Independence, plus some other things. And I'm just wondering, is the context being set for these 250 places, people, events and objects and what have you, in terms of how it relates to the birthday, of the Declaration of Independence?
That's a great question, Valerie. So not specifically, so we want to keep it a little broader than that. I think we're really looking at how these places, people, objects have defined Maine and how Maine has then has been defined by, or that's not the right word. I just had a brain cramp. But how like Maine's development, it relates to the development of the nation as a whole too. So it's a lot broader. It's not just
I was thinking about democracy, that's kind of broad.
Yes.
Yeah, and how it related to democracy and eventually Maine becoming an independent state too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, so it's broader than just the revolution for sure, but yeah. Great question, thanks.
Any other questions? I think when you were talking, oh no, here's one. Are you thinking of having something like a bingo card to encourage people to visit as many as possible and increase?
That's a good question. That has come up, or something conceptual like that. I don't know yet, if we're gonna have the funding to be able to do something like that, or if we can figure out how to do it in a cool way that's digital. So maybe. That's a strong maybe. Christina.
I was just going to say that made me think of like when the lighthouses in the state, there's a passport that you can have stamps put on and everything. So that's just something that came into my mind.
Yeah, that's a great, that's a great, great citation. Thanks, Christina.
I think I think Mainers can be very goal oriented.
Yep,
So if
love
we
it.
can figure out how to make it work, it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or even folks from outside the state. I mean, I think
Yeah,
this is
sure.
both, right? It's-
Yeah, we're very connected to what all the other 250th state commissions are doing. especially when it comes to-
Virginia ran a passport program for years.
Yep.
And the kids from everywhere would take part in it, and even if you could only get 5 stamps, they loved going to the desk and getting a stamp.
It's super fun. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, I've noodled on a couple things, but we'll see. It would be really cool if we did. So, but yeah.
Yeah, great.
Cool.
And I see just an expression of desire to work with
Oh,
local
yeah.
partners and ensure, and I think this is the goal being as inclusive as possible and as
Yeah.
statewide as possible. So,
Yeah.
you know, being a Hancock County girl, sure, I'd love it to be 250 sites in Hancock and Washington
Right?
County, but that is not the goal. So.
First come,
making
first served. Next time.
Yes, making sure that we include, you know, I think there's a comment here about Pownellborough, you know, Wisconsin,
Oh,
Alma, Dresden being one of the sites. And I think there's some really great history there. And I think we should, you know, I think the goal for the whole commission is to be as inclusive and representative
Absolutely.
as possible.
And I have a special love for the Pownellborough Courthouse, so it will not be forgotten, I promise.
And I see Pat saying yes to the bingo card idea for kids.
Yeah.
So, and the kids in all of us. I want to move us along to the next agenda item, but please, if you have questions for Sarah, reach out.
Yeah. And there'll be a lot more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So our next agenda item is speaking of branding. We really do want to start to be communicating outward and also including more people and receiving, you know, more information coming in. And so Sarah is queuing us up for our vote on branding.
Yeah, so last time you had seen a very similar version of this, and I took your feedback about making sure that we had the date 1776 to 2026. And so I spoke with our designer, he did that. I apologize, this is not a super high resolution image, so it's not as fuzzy as that in real life, I promise. So this is the new version of that. There are some different colors, and I know the executive committee I talked about just using the blue and green and not necessarily the buff, but this is what it looks like. And so if everyone is content and happy with this, that we can vote on it and we will release it into the world.
I'm impressed that they got the years, because I think one of the concerns
Yeah.
that we had is everyone in this call is aware of what a semi-quincentennial is, but defining it with having the 1776 to 2026 felt really important to the commission members in our last meeting, because we are concerned that people wouldn't know what semi-quincentennial meant without that
Yeah.
additional information. I love the North Star as well. Richard.
Yeah, good, thank you. I thought it was eerily, especially the blues, similar to Camden National Bank. And instead of a anchor, we have a star. But my question was, and I apologize for missing the last meeting, but is this something we're just using on letterhead to communicate out? Is it something that we're gonna expect that anybody that may or may not receive a grant from us integrate? Or is it something that's gonna be very publicly outward facing? Because I looked at Bernard's comments in the last meeting minutes, and there's nothing in here that says America, USA, 250. And if I look at this, I get the years that are there, but one might infer that we're celebrating Maine's semi-quincentennial. And so that's the big gap that I've got. And, you know, I'm indifferent. I appreciate the work that everybody's put into it, but that's just, if I see a logo, this doesn't tell me there's anything really about America here.
So I think to answer your question, I think one, we want to create an official website sooner rather than later. It looks like we can get that up and going by April, if not before, but April realistically, given the state IT professionals timeline, that's when they think that they can do that for us. So we do want to get a website up sooner than later, and we wanted to have an official branding that is in keeping with Maine state government, so people understand this is the official Maine Semi-Quincentennial Commission. And I could imagine if we are sponsoring events in the way that logos are included on programs for arts and cultural activities or things of that sort, we need a logo that is something that could be placed on that so that people would understand, okay, this is something that's been endorsed by the Maine Semi-Quincentennial Commission. Of course, there may be lots of events out in communities that may or may not have our logo on them because we may not be involved, or maybe we're promoting them, but we're not officially endorsing and we're not part of the planning committee. So I think that is some fundamental basic utilitarian uses of this logo. In terms of, you know, if there were to be a passport, right, for the kids, like with the 250 sites, presumably this would be a logo to be like, here's your official passport, everybody. But I think one of the reasons that we haven't and we can't use America 250 is there are responsibilities to America 250. And I think the commission voted last summer not to be formally affiliated and enter into contractual obligations because there's so many strings attached with being part of the America 250 effort. And they have trademarked America 250. So we are legally
The
prohibited.
easiest and best name.
I would like to be Maine's America 250 Commission, but that is trademarked. And because we can't do that, and God love, you know, the feds, I love them many times. Anyway, like not go down that road, but because we can't do that, that's why this doesn't say America 250/Maine. And that's just a very practical, pragmatic perspective. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I you know, things like USA or something like that. I get it. It just, to me, on the surface, pronunciation of the word is difficult anyway.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna miss the mark with Brawny Manor. But it is beautiful for people that know what it is.
I think that's a good point, because I didn't know what it was either. And I think we have to think about who's our audience on this. And how is it going, what is it going to tell the audience? Just out of curiosity, I don't even see, you know, Declaration of Independence birthday on here. I know some other states are using that, but there's nothing that tells me what this is all about and why we should be celebrating. It doesn't even tell me that there's a celebration.
Thank you for that input, Valerie. And I do just want to share that when we vote, it will just be the commission members who will be able to vote on the logo itself. But I thank you, and you know, thanks for expressing your opinion on this. Bernard, yep, I'm your
Sorry to be contrary, but my comments of the last time have not been met. I feel this design is insufficient in terms of comprehensibility, which has been brought up. I can barely understand what it's communicating. A word like semi-quincentennial presented that way is going to be distressing and mysterious to most readers. And the tone of it is grim. I know we live in grim times, but the comment about celebration and birthday, I think, suggests that it should be a more lighthearted, colorful presentation. I'm afraid I don't feel this is worthy of our commission.
Other thoughts?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Being new to this whole process, a lot of the time nowadays, logos are easily changed given the event that they're being used for, especially like that background field. I know when we were at the First Amendment Museum, we could switch the field that was behind our logo. At one point we had pine trees behind it, and another point we had an American flag behind it, and another time we had a diversity flag behind it. So I'm just curious if we are locked into the colors or if we have that ability to change it depending on its use in the moment.
I think the answer to that is absolutely yes. And I will just bring us back to the prior minutes. So Bernard, you mentioned your concerns about semi-quincentennial, but I think the challenge is we are the Semiquincentennial Commission. So for us to say that something is from us, I think, I
It's
do
not
think,
the use of the word I object to, but the way the graphics presented.
yeah,
And that I think is the most serious difficulty. Look, I don't think we need to have a unanimous vote on this.
okay.
I certainly don't expect necessarily that anyone will join me in my observations. But those are my observations, and obviously I will enthusiastically support whatever our commission chooses.
Well,
Peter?
Oh, sorry.
Peter, you're on mute.
Sorry, I thought I hit it. Is there a way to have Arcadia needed to, I understand the OIT needed to, have something to work with to get a website up, wanting to get a website up right away. But to the point that we're not necessarily wedded to this, can we just use this as a placeholder and ask our graphics people to work on a little more addressing Richard's and Bernard's concerns?
Certainly we can. I will say one of our challenges, our graphic people are free. No, they're not free.
No, but they're charging us a very tiny
Okay.
amount, and we've had them do this is the third redesign.
Mhm.
So I expect we will need to revisit the cost with them.
But I think your point is well taken, Peter. Nothing is immutable, right? Like the seal, I mean, people think of the seal of the state of Maine as permanent, and yet I have a whole exhibit at my office you can come see of different versions of the seal. And in fact, different secretaries have used for different versions of the seal on the letterhead. So I think certainly to Bernard's point, to your point, Peter, to Richard's point, we can ask the designers if they can bring some more light to it and some sort of connection to the concept of the United States. But we could also utilize this for purposes of the website and Facebook page and materials that are going, we need to start tabling and we need to start letting people know that we exist so that there's an official imprint on that we exist, and then potentially at some point, change it if we can bring back something that gets us to a unanimous perspective.
And they could put USA 250 across the bottom and then sit down and start thinking about something more celebratory.
Well, the other thing is it's not going to be used in isolation. It's going to be used in context.
Yeah.
So we need to have a visual little piece, but on the website, it's going to say if there's going to be context for it. When it's used on a program promotion, there's going to be context for it. So while if you have endless pocketbooks worth of money, you can hire amazing designers to embed all of your values in your logo. Like that's probably a idealistic goal that probably isn't going to happen with our budget. So acknowledging that a lot of that will be in the context in which it is used.
Yeah. Abby?
Thanks. I was going to say a little bit of what Julia just said. I'll just add to it that, this is always tough to create a logo by, a big group of people. I happen to think that this works well it's essentially a 2-year program. And to Julia's point, there will be many different uses of this and taglines associated with it. So I feel like that's the missing piece is the context. And I just wanted to voice my opinion about it, that I'm perfectly comfortable with this, but that's my 2 cents. Thank you so much.
Also with the web design, circling back to Peter's point, it's not just going to be the logo, right? Like there'll be, and I think you've raised something really important, Julia. And we can be celebrating United States of America's 250 celebration. That can be splashy and it can be a more flowy, vibrant font if we want, rather than the classical across the top of that. We can have imagery that gets people excited on the website.
And Abby tagline. I mean, right now, we don't have a tagline, so a
Right.
tagline may in fact be what adds a lot of that context that can go along with that on a regular basis. So that's another little piece to think about, that you don't have to then, the tagline doesn't have to be graphically designed. I mean, it wants to be visually consistent, but you don't have to then, you don't have to fit all of those words into a logo, because there's too many words in, I mean.
It's already so wordy, yeah. It's
Um,
all letters. Richard?
Yeah, sorry, the horse is just
No.
about dead, but we're all pretty high level folks in the room and online, and I respect that. But this is above the head of average Mainers. And when we talk about, well, we need a website, but we need the Facebook, and this is what we're going to use, this is letterhead at best for official messaging from the commission. Mainers don't know this, they're not going to say it. It's going to be run off as some government bureaucracy waste, when in actuality it's not. But I mean, are we going to have maine.gov/semi-quincentennial and then people won't be able to access the page? Or how are we going to put it on our Facebook page if that's what we're going to have? I think this branding effort, yes, it's a logo, but our branding effort is way off the tracks in terms of keeping in track with your everyday Mainers who just want to know what's going on for America's 250th birthday.
So what I hear you saying is, when we think about the website address, it needs to be something like a maine.gov/America 250, and then share America to 250 to sue us. When we think about the Facebook page, thinking about that as well. Just so what I hear you saying isn't what is the stamp, to your point, on a letterhead, because maybe that is this, because our official name is the semi-quincentennial page. But your point is, when someone Googles us, how do they find us? When someone types in our address, how do they find us? If we put our address at on a flyer, and somebody takes a picture of it, or tries to remember what it was, how do they find us?
I think we've missed the mark.
Okay.
I like it from our group perspective and our messaging out to organizations or whatnot. But when we talk about the public at large, I think we missed the mark.
Okay.
So I guess my question would be, or well, I'll say semi-quincentennial is difficult to say, it's difficult to spell, but it kind of is what it is. And, America 250 has taken a lot of the best names that there are available. I'm just gonna say it. And
Yeah.
they've taken a lot of the cleanest and easiest things that we could use. So, I mean, I don't know how we get to, and I'm not a branding expert or anything, but how do we get away from semi-quincentennial commission what's the alternative? I guess I don't understand that.
And one of the things that I want to differentiate between, and I think Richard's comment helps crystallize this, so there's a logo, right? Like just the print that you put at the bottom of like sponsored by, but there's also branding that comes from other collateral. And maybe we need a committee of people that want to work on this. I don't know, Richard, if this is something that you'd want to spend some time on. Marcia is not here today, but this is something she has a lot of experience in. Maybe there's a small group that can think about other collateral pieces and other things that we use in different situations according to Peter's.
I don't have that eye. I know when I don't like it, I guess. I don't like it. But I don't have
Yeah,
that
I just don't want to
mind.
put us on a route of like every meeting fighting about our logo and not getting to good stuff.
But, so
Yeah.
I guess it then begs the question, did we just waste a bunch of money on this? If this is just going to be a footnote on everything that goes out. And I would much rather spend the money on Celebrate America, Maine style, or whatever, than however much money we just invested in this. I'm done, I promise.
Okay, well, I think it's time to call the question for now. And so I think we've had a vibrant discussion about this as a logo. And then I think, if it passes, we'll go with this for now. And if it fails, we'll go back to the drawing board. So any further commentary before I move us to a vote? Okay, but I do want to say, regardless of how the vote happens, I think we hear what you're saying and where you're coming from, Richard. So and I see a comment here, Maine at 250. Sounds great to me for all marketing. And I'm intrigued by that. So, and I know that there are people who are better marketing people than I am that could help us think that through too.
And it's also difficult to differentiate between, are we celebrating Maine's 250th? That becomes difficult to communicate
Which is
to in a
51 years.
logo.
Right.
Right. So
45.
like we have the Maine in there because it is our celebration of our commemoration of these events. I think that's hard to pair with. It's basically a sentence at that point. At a certain point, it's like Maine celebrates America's 250, but we can't say America 250.
America at 250.
America at 250.
Imagine if we were Hawaii.
Yeah.
All right, USA 250.
He's making very good points.
Yeah.
How about just a happy birthday, Declaration of Independence, love Maine? Anyway.
Thank you. All right, so for commission members, and I think I will call a roll because I think we will, because I think it'll be a divided report, as they say in the legislature, and to Richard's point, divided reports are 100% okay. So I'm gonna start in this room, Bernard.
No.
We need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion. We don't have a motion.
I'll make a motion that the commission accepts the logo as presented today.
Is there a second?
You have to choose a color.
No. I think that was the point, that the color could be changed depending on its usage.
Yeah, it's a brand set. Yeah.
Second.
Okay, made by Christian, seconded by Julia. All right, so I'm gonna read down, maybe I'll go online first. Yeah, I just need to,
Do you want the?
yeah, okay. So Earl,
No.
okay. Peter,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Bernard,
No.
is Allison here? Place of
She's
Laura?
here in place of Laura.
Okay, Allison, voting
So
on.
I'm really torn because I totally understand everything that you're saying. But I'm going to vote yes, because I do think it represents the commission, but I would love to see more work associated with the context and for the public piece, if possible. But I will vote yes as is.
Okay,
I don't need to move forward.
thank you. Abby,
Yes.
Marcia is absent. Julia,
Yes.
I believe Jamie is absent. Is there anyone from Maine Historical Society? Okay, Kurt,
Yes.
okay, Richard,
No.
okay. Greg voting on behalf of Governor Mills.
I'd abstain. I would have to abstain.
Abstain,
Yeah.
okay. Is there anyone here representing Senate President Daughtry's office? No? Anyone representing Speaker Fecto's office? No, and then, I will vote yes. So Sarah, can you share the?
Yep, so 7 yes, 3 no, 1 abstention.
Okay, so we'll move forward with this as a logo, but we hear the objections loud and clear. And we will ask our designers to think about that, and when we work on the website, so just to share with everybody an update, so we are moving forward with an website through Maine IT, through the Department of Secretary of State. So the budget for some of this, for the design and for Maine IT is not a specific appropriation. We are using Maine State Archives funds. So thank you, Kate McBrien, thank you, Christian. We're just making it a priority. It's coming out of our regular funding that we use for whatever we do in a year. And this is just one of our highest priorities. And so we'll be moving forward with that website and have something to show commission members at our next meeting, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm going to invite Sarah, maybe we put our heads around taglines and pizzazz.
Yeah.
This idea of USA 250 or America at 250 Maine or whatever it is.
I'll talk to,
It's not
yeah.
my jurisdiction.
Yeah, Ben, the guy that we're working with, does branding internationally, for communities and historic, association organizations. So I will chat with him about what ideas he might have for a tagline too for us and, see what other graphics we can come up with that are super snazzy.
Awesome,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
So item number 7, I think this is really exciting, kicking it back to Sarah. So Sarah's been doing some great work connecting with other states, connecting with the national, just to find out what people are doing and where we can tie into initiatives that go beyond our borders. And you have some to share.
Yes, so this one in particular is called Two Lights for Tomorrow, and this actually, it started in Wisconsin. And has been sort of taken up, the mantle's been taken up by Virginia. And the concept for this is for to celebrate the famous ride of Paul Revere.
The fictionalized famous ride of Paul
Well,
Revere.
sure, yes, what we fantasize as the ride of Paul Revere. And the concept is that every state will do some form of lighting, either in the state house or something, to sort of show that we are all united in celebrating this. So they want to obviously start this year, so on April 18th, they're calling for 2 lights to be displayed in every state house across the country. There are, I think, 32 states that have signed on to do this now. And more have indicated that they want and will be signing on. So I wanted to bring this to you. I feel like it's a pretty easy lift in terms of low cost to no cost. And could be a cool thing to participate. And when we, Shenna had this very cool idea about associating the ringing of Paul Revere bells. And so I did some quick and dirty research about Paul Revere bells in Maine, and I don't know if there's one still in Castine. I found mixed reviews.
Okay.
And so these are for sure the ones listed, and there's other possible locations, but having the bells rung at the same time as part of ceremony. And states are taking this from just like turning on a lantern or a spotlight all the way to having like reenactments and readings and all sorts of things. So it's running the gamut, but I wanted to bring it to you all to see if that was something that piqued your interest, that we would want to see, if we can get something going for this year. And obviously it's a little bit late, but certainly for next year too, so.
And I just want to echo Sarah, and also I'm just going to read off the list. Bath City
Yeah.
Hall, Benton Falls Meeting House, Kennebunk First Parish UU Church, Machias Center Street Church, Newcastle St. Patrick's Catholic Church, North J Beans Corner Baptist Church, Thomaston Knox Memorial Association, Winterport Union Meeting House, and Paris Hill First Baptist Church. There's also there's one more there are a couple of other possible locations.
Yeah, supposedly there's 24 in Maine, but some are, not functional, some are other there's not a consistent list. At the end of this, there might be, which would be helpful.
And maybe
so.
not all the bells can be rung, but I thought perhaps the Semi-Quincentennial Commission endorsing this initiative. And then we could work with the State House and the Executive Director to see some sort of lighting that we do on these days, some sort of ceremony at the State House, bring people out for that history. And there were other rides as well around that time. The Holocaust Center does a fun.
There was a woman, that
yes.
an actual ride as
Right.
opposed to Paul Revere's fictional ride.
So I think it could be fun at an event like that to highlight that. And I think it might be fun for the commission via Sarah to reach out to these locations and just share that this is happening. And that if they also wanted to light a light at that same time, and we could publicize it as something that we're doing across the state. And also it's a nice way, we're all looped in to the 250th birthday of America being in 2026, but I'm not sure that most Mainers have yet, you know, to Richard's point, delved into this. And this is a no cost way to say, hey, we've got this history and it's starting now, and let's commemorate it.
Do we have to limit the participation to the Revere bells?
No,
You know,
not at all.
Could it be a church and, you know,
Nope.
South
Anyone
Bristol?
who wants to do it.
We can make it
Absolutely.
what we want.
Absolutely.
I think it's great.
And Jamie's not on here, but certainly
Yeah.
Maine Historical Society with the Longfellow House, with the Brothers Longfellow
Right.
House, I think,
Yeah.
whether they, you know, touching base with them about whether they're gonna be doing anything in
Yeah.
in connection with
I've
that.
asked to chat with Jamie about this
Yeah.
separately since she wasn't able to be here today, so.
And I see some responses here, possibly at the General Henry Knox Museum, at town halls, which I think is real, both of those are really exciting. So I feel like it's something that's inclusive, that is a way to sort of ring off the series of, you know, things that people are already doing. So, but wanted to bring it all to you and see what you thought.
Well, just, I mean, again, I'm good at being, I make good trouble all the time. So, Paul Revere's story in Maine is actually much less of a hero story. He was court-martialed for his actions at the Penobscot expedition. He was later acquitted, but he did not put himself forward well at that. So that's a really, like, when we talk about complicating history and not just taking this like Paul Revere and it was actually Henry Borges Longfellow's grandfather, I think, that was often butting heads with Paul Revere, but so that's an interesting part when we talk about Maine's story about Paul Revere, which is much later in 1779. It's much more complicated.
Yeah,
So
when we should tell that story, I mean,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Can you
I love
share a
it.
little bit more about that?
So he was one of the, and I'm not good at like military like levels and so another local storyman, but he was one of the officers of the militia, I believe, at the Penobscot expedition. And he had a gun emplacement on Nautilus Island. It was, I don't know if it was called Nautilus Island, the point right across from where the museum is. And it was actually the only, well, that was the longest lasting like gun emplacement because the Americans didn't do very well on the Penobscot expedition. But he, during their retreat, first of all, there was just a ton of arguing between all the people in charge at various levels of the Penobscot expedition, which is why, a large part of why it failed for the Americans. But during the retreat, which was for some reason upriver, why they thought that would work, I'm not sure. He defied orders. He was asked to use his barge to be able to do something, I don't remember, I'd have to go back and look. And to move equipment, and he said, no, I've got all my stuff on it, and I'm not gonna do that, because I need to get all my stuff to shore so that I can flee back to Boston. So he defied orders at that time and was court-martialed and was then acquitted, but at the same time, the naval commander of the US fleet was court-martialed and convicted, so yeah. But there was there's still like one of the few, I mean, Fort George is not, but there's still supposedly, I haven't been able to actually see it out there, but on Nautilus Island, there's still remnants of his gun emplacement, and we know that he was there, and he was part of this interesting, complicated, messy story of the Revolution in Maine, so.
I think the neat thing about programs like what we're talking about with the bells and the lights and
Yeah.
stuff is that it allows communities to take it in directions that is meaningful for them.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, consistent with the resources they have at their disposal, right? So if the bells rung here, you know, somebody in, you know, even Hollowell's not gonna hear it, right? But,
Right.
you know, if every church in every town or every state house in every town participates in this, and local historical societies can get speakers speaking about whatever topics they find relevant.
Yeah, not by
Right.
this April, maybe, but by.
Yeah, next April for sure. Yeah.
Just putting two lights in the air.
Yeah.
So
The speaker part.
you've got a speaking role.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think everybody would be able to participate in this on whatever graduated level they want to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
And having it this year, I think is important, because I think one of the things that I find fascinating by the Philadelphia centric nature of the 250th is that it's 17th. I mean, yes, it's the Declaration of Independence, but it's not, I mean, it's being presented as the American Revolution, right? Not just Declaration.
Right.
And the New England, and by 1776, the New England story is almost
You're
done.
Right.
And so to be able to actually have a much more locally meaningful.
Yeah.
Well,
point.
What I'd like to
point in time.
propose is, what if we were to do an event at the State House where the commission members who could join, were present, and we did sort of a press conference / kickoff. We lit a light and rang a bell if we can. And we invite maybe we do something, maybe we do some sort of call for that a month ahead of time, and publicize, the towns across Maine can do whatever they want. But then on that day, we utilize that, and we utilize the megaphone of the State House to sort of talk about the activities that are going to be happening across the next year and a half, because it really is only a year and a half. And we also, maybe we light a fire under Maine IT and say, we need to have this website by the 18th. I can make that request.
Great.
And we tell the hard history, like Julia, maybe you prepare some remarks on that.
Make sure to
And-
do research on actually.
Yeah.
It was something like.
And, for me, speaking at an event like that, I could, talk about Paul Revere's ride, but also talk about, and I'm blanking on her name, but there's an
Yeah.
actual girl that did an actual ride. So, we could do some sort of kickoff and share the values and our mission that we've already decided on, and a few details about how we're gonna be rolling this out. So, and we could include in press materials from that day, anything that we know that is happening. So we could invite people to reach out to Sarah and let them know, like, okay, we're definitely doing it. Sybil Luddington, thank you, Pat. Yes, you're absolutely right. So we could include materials about everywhere that it's happening.
Yeah.
We could send out a letter with our new logo that I could sign or an email to the folks that we know that have these sites, and just encourage people to do it. And to potentially our town managers and city clerks, and
Yeah.
say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. If you want to do something in your town, we're gonna be doing this, and we're happy, let us know, and we'll let people know that you're doing it.
Yeah.
So,
Be also reaching out to like the religious leaders, if there's any like mailing lists for religious leaders in the state to utilize the church belfries.
Maine Council of
Yeah.
Churches,
Yeah.
certainly, and the historical societies. Oh, good. Oh, that's fun. Presque Isle is doing an traveling exhibit for 2026 on 4 women who contributed to the revolution, and Sybil Luddington was one of them. That's very cool.
Scott, to your question, it would be the 18th of April. The 19th, a lot of states are doing different days of service, but there has been a nationwide agreement amongst the state coordinators that all of the things will be happening on the 18th.
Is there a
So-
time on the 18th, or is it any time?
No, it's kind of, I think it's
Well,
dusk in a lot of
It was at
places.
night, right? Cause they hold
Right,
up the
it's
lantern
gonna
and I
be-
had to see
yeah.
it, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Might do a press event in the daytime and
Yeah,
light
and
event at
then
the night.
light
or
at night,
something.
yeah.
Be more
But-
dramatic at night.
That's true.
For sure.
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah.
Do something live. Okay, is there, it seems like there's consensus, but I don't know if we
Yeah.
want to make it a formal vote, that this will be an official activity or official.
Yeah.
I think an official request of the commission to the executive director of the legislature, because the legislature does control the activities of the state capitol, so we want to, make that a formal request.
I just find it too bad that that's on a Friday, which the legislature may not be less present than any given,
Plus it's the
any other day of the week.
headed
virtually.
into school vacation.
Yeah.
Right.
But not that we can control that.
Well, let's tell Paul to change when he did his job.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, but if I can take back, and let, the Two Lives for Tomorrow folks know too, that Maine is in, we'll get on the map, and they'll help us, promote some stuff too, so.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that the commission communicates with the Two Lights.
Two Lives for Tomorrow.
Yep, and requests to join in the fun.
Right, there a second?
Participate in the event.
join the fun works too.
Okay, didn't know how official we need to be.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Bernard. I'm gonna say all in favor, say aye, and then aye, raise your hands. All opposed, say nay. Not seeing any opposition, any abstentions? No abstains, so it's unanimous. Okay, so we'll put together some outreach, but I'm really excited by the things I was seeing in the chat. So any entity, any of our guests who are already thinking about how you might be part of this, please, you have Sarah's information, share that with her so she can help us stay organized and make sure that we lift your efforts up locally as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the chat will save too. So I'm sorry, we haven't been able to respond live during the meeting, but I will definitely respond to all of you commenting. So I appreciate it.
Just trying to see if there were any other questions here. Oh, 2 lights in the town halls, love it.
Yep.
Wiscasset, Revere Bell
Yep.
too. Okay, great. Okay. So that brings us, we're still on.
There's a question.
Oh, sorry, who's the question from? Thank you. Earl.
Yeah, I just. That, also, Hollowell, owned Revere Bell as well, in the Congregational Church. Now, sadly, that building burned in 1878 with a bell. However, the Hubbard Free Library has the correspondence with Paul Revere Foundry and the bills for the bell in their collection, and the manuscripts dealing with acquiring the bell around 1800 from the Revere Foundry in Boston. So we might want to add Hollowell to the mix.
Will do. Thank you, Earl.
Scott asks the question, let's decide now, when do we want the bells to be rung on April 18th?
I think we need to clear with the
Probably we
the
need to
people,
reach
the
out
powers
to the
that be
legislature.
before, and then we'll let people know, right?
Yeah.
After we've connected the legislature.
We'll go out to this list and all interested parties and we'll do a communication. I think we could put together a communication pretty easily to the towns at least a month ahead of time.
Yeah,
if not
absolutely.
more.
Yeah.
So we'll communicate with the legislature and see what's possible. And then utilize that to plan a time. So great. Yeah, this is
Cool.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yay. So that brings us to the semi-quincentennial survey result highlights.
Yeah.
So Sarah, do you,
I'm
and
hap-
welcome Kate McBride, Chief Deputy Secretary of State, joining us. And I will just say, I'm gonna end us at promptly at 4:30. If that means that we can't quite get to the task force updates, we may result to the next meeting unless you wanna quickly.
We
share.
can, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to skip the survey results too, because those were all in your meeting materials. There's some basic highlights, there's no, nothing extraordinary, in terms of surprises or anything about, people definitely are hoping for financial help and support from us, and are also looking for volunteers. That was kind of the biggest takeaway from that. It's like, yep, that tracks. So and I'm happy, I can do that next time too. And then I also included updates from America 250 in the meeting materials. That's sort of an overview of kind of they're calling their tent poles and where they are with those. And then I also included the executive order from Task Force 250, which is a brand new task force. Still unclear how that's going to work with the existing America 250 organization. We haven't heard anything other than the executive order. So
We have 18 minutes.
Yep.
Do you want to walk us through your beautiful slides that you included in our handouts, just to go back to the survey? for a
Yeah.
minute?
I think there's some time in this of talking about the national context.
Okay, go for it.
I just think we want to be mindful of what the content of that executive order, for example, means for a lot of our partners and our collaborators, who may feel that it has cut them out of this process and out of this commemoration and out of this historical moment. And know that while there are folks that very much will be enjoying this as a celebration, that there's a really complicated story and that there may be some real concerns. And there may be folks that are able to take this executive order and take it in a different direction that could be additionally harmful to people that are really important to me and to my organization, and I think it's us as a state in terms of a really broad and diverse and inclusive and expansive commemoration. So I just think we want to be mindful about it and thinking about it and not pretending it's not going to impact what's going to happen here. So I guess I just want to make sure that we had that out there, and I know there are going to be a diversity of feelings about it and perspectives on it, but I think I know I'm hearing from people that they are concerned about what that messaging is and how that will shape the way people perceive us as the 250th commission or however we put ourselves forward. So I think it's an elephant in the room that should not be ignored.
I think that's a really important point, and I think one of my concerns, I have some very visceral and emotional attachments to the celebration of America's birthday. Like my grandfather was a history teacher who lived in Lexington. So I grew up going to Patriots Day reenactments and learning that story. And I think when we think about who was in power and who could vote and who couldn't vote and who was not a full person in 1776, it's really, a shameful part of our history. And we think about how we've expanded rights over time and then become a more inclusive and representative nation. And so I think my interest in this commission, and I think from the start, all of us have talked about inclusion and how are we recognizing the contributions of everyone in our state, and how are we telling stories that were hidden or suppressed in 1776, or stories of who we've become as a state over 250 years and as a nation rather. So I want to be really careful that we're not excluding Black and Brown people, that we're not excluding the Wabanaki tribal nations and their contributions to who we are as a state and nation, and that we are being as expansive as possible. And I am worried that some of the rhetoric around how things could be done at the national level could be really exclusionary, just in terms of words that are prohibited.
Yeah. Well, and even if you can take the words and spin them so that, well, maybe they didn't mean it that way. It is the impact is equally as important as the intent. And so understanding how that can be felt and perceived by others I think is really important. And just the fact that the public history community has been doing such hard work for so many years to make this about themes and inclusion and understanding, this isn't just about a moment, this is about our nation and its evolution, about doing good history and about how to, that it's all of these things. It's the celebration, but it's also the harm, and it's the commemoration, and it's also the fireworks and the parades. With the fact that it should be all of those things, and the current administration's approach is not all of those things approach. And
there's a question here in the chat: how much does the Maine Commission depend on support from the national level? Could they prohibit us from doing something? So the commission voted last summer not to tie ourselves to the federal America 250 Commission because we had concerns again about the restrictions and the just the direction of America 250 at the national level last summer. So no, they cannot legally prohibit us from doing anything. And for better or worse, zero funding from the feds would be exactly what we have now. So that piece is not a consideration. But I think it's an important conversation. Other thoughts in the room,
I agree 100% with what we've said.
Anyone online wanting to speak among the commission members? I see a raised hand from Richard.
Yeah, and we talk about this, and I completely respect it. And I mean, from what is here in the packet for the executive order, we've seen plenty of executive orders, so kind of take it with a grain of salt because that's how many there are. But there's nothing in here I think that's exclusionary, so I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt for today. But if I live to be 100, boy oh boy, I hope that you're going to focus on all of the wonderful things in my life that I've done and I've accomplished and where I am at the age of 100, instead of talking about all of the silly mistakes that I made or relationships that I burned or people that I treated like crap along the way. So while I understand and respect the history that we've got, and acknowledging it. I think what folks want is a celebration. And we don't need to tie ourselves to any greater authority, but for us to sit and focus on our dark times, I don't think that's what Americans or Mainers want right now. So let's not ignore it. But I think we want to make it a focus, and I think that will create division. We've really got to find the unifying factors here.
And I think when you say find the unifying factors, I think creating community is a really important aspect of this. I completely agree there. And the question is, how do we create community in a way that doesn't exclude people without saying that you're excluding, but that erases who they are, erases their contributions. And I think I'm hopeful that we can do that. So I'm hopeful if we remain mindful of that we recognize, because to your point, we've come a long way in 250 years. We've done some remarkable things, but I think, just like, when we talk about Paul Revere, I think it's interesting to share the story that Julia shares and maybe have a little bit of that context, but also, or it's also interesting to lift up Sybil Ludington, not to denigrate Paul Revere, but just to say, hey, and there was this other really amazing thing that happened as well. And her story isn't quite as well known, but she also did one of those rides. So I think one of the reasons I want to have that conversation is just to make sure that we're being mindful. And if there are people that come to us and say, hey, you're forgetting about us, or there's something else that you need to be thinking about, that we try to recognize that and hear that too. Peter, I see your hand raised, and then Bernard in the room.
It's really important. My personal approach to this is, I look back in my thinking about everything that the commission is doing, is I look back to the Declaration and the Constitution, as I said earlier, as our mission and vision statement, and the ideals to which we want to live, and the ideals to which we aspire. And I think we want to focus on those, and both, to Richard's point, acknowledge how well we've done, and to Shanna's point, acknowledge where we have failed. And but the key to me is we have these ideals and these aspirations, and it's the positive that keeps us moving on. We just need to bring everybody along. Yes, we screwed this up terribly, so let's try and figure out how to fix it and move forward. I think we have to have both.
Bernard.
I want to express sympathy with your views, Peter and Richard. So I think looking for ideals and a degree of celebration is what's called for here. History, the complexity of history is largely forgotten in these times, our times now. We're living in very troubled times, and I think looking towards the ideals that formed our country is the best guarantee for the future. And one reason I'm saying anything now is because I want some of these feelings about relative optimism to be reflected in the atlas that we discussed earlier. That's going to be very important. If that is merely a list of tragedies and catastrophes, it's going to fail in its purpose. So I think having real historians and good editors, whether it's for the visual part or the written part, is going to be an important part of that project and should not be forgotten. But this is a moment of reflection, not to ignore our failings, but to honor a future which we hope will continue to be better than the past.
We may have different ideas about what that future that we hope will be different and better than the past might look like, right? So I think that's something else to just think about. And
well, you said it yourself, and the greater inclusion, the greater sensibilities that we have about injustice or desire to correct it.
Yeah.
These are some of the glories that our country can celebrate, which is not to cover up the faults that we tried to correct, especially in what I consider very troubled times for our country now. But I don't want to concentrate on those terrible failures. We can refer to them and mention them and not ignore them. But this should be, I think, a more uplifting opportunity than a rehash of the old catastrophes. That's just my personal opinion.
I think we need to start doing some work. I think we need to start like putting some stuff together. Like we just talked about planning a program that's about lights and ringing bells, you know? That's everybody's
good thing.
on board with that. Okay, so let's start doing some work. Let's start getting this atlas going and let's see where it takes us.
I think that's a very good point. And I think we wanted to bring this conversation forward because we have members who are wondering if they want to continue in this work. And I just want to put that into the space because we need to make sure that you know, this isn't we need to make sure that we're not forgetting, like, this is for all Mainers, right? Every single Mainer should be able to be part of this effort and see themselves reflected in places that they would want to visit and see themselves recognized in the history that we're talking about and see themselves celebrated. So I think just trying to keep that in place and not create I think to your point, April 18th, that's for everybody. Lights, bells, America's 250 years old.
Right.
That is something. But you know, let's make sure that we're not being blind. I think that's where I'm going.
And I think for those of us that are at history organizations, there's a reason why a lot of people think history is boring. Is because it's a very simplistic presentation, whereas if you can make history complicated, think about the TV shows that we love, like Breaking Bad, like my husband's been binging on that, and that is complicated, man. Like, who's good, who's bad, all this kind of stuff, people actually really engage and connect to complicated stories, so I think, and again, I'm not saying that this is all about the negative, what I'm saying is it needs to be complicated, and we need to acknowledge, like, we can't do a better future if we don't say this is what we have learned from, and so it's all one big package, and I think that if we can, you know, it's fascinating to realize that Paul Revere was imperfect. It's fascinating to realize that there were all these loyalists in me. Like the complicatedness of it is going to have people like, wait a minute, I didn't know that. I thought it was just this. So I think there's a lot of engagement points to have with making it a little bit more complicated, and also just to as you know, look, the national public history community has talked about. You know, making it relevant for folks whose families weren't here in 1776, or this whose state wasn't here in 1776, or all those things. And that's where that complicated history and saying that you know, these ideals and how we are living into them and how we can do better are all part of that story. I think that just it makes it a much bigger open arms thing. So
Abby has a comment. Go for it, Abby.
Thanks. Just because there's just a couple minutes left, I want to, this is not directly related to the current conversation. But I really want to keep the idea of service on the table. I think it's a little bit related to what we're talking about in the package that Sarah sent us. I can't remember the exact percentage, but in the survey, there was something like 30% of the organizations that said that they needed some kind of volunteer work. I just really want us to think about this question of how can we connect service across our state and really engaging Mainers. What better way to learn about our organizations and our history than getting to work, putting some boots on. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you for listening. I hope we can continue that one.
Yeah, and this is a conversation we'll certainly continue, and just being mindful and respectful of people's time. I think at our next meeting, maybe we take another look at the survey results, just to remind ourselves of what our local, the grassroots wants, and to keep grounded in that. We will share some details about April 18th and 19th. That's gonna be fun. That's gonna be our first action. And we will also update everyone if the bill gets printed, the funding bill, we'll let everyone know and coordinate.
It would be great if that could get printed before
The biennial.
before the 18th,
Yeah.
before that event,
Yeah.
at least.
Sure would. Let's see what you and I can
Yeah.
do with revisers
Yeah.
on that. That's a really great idea.
Mhm.
And we'll see what we can do with Maine IT on the website.
Yeah.
So I think we have some action items and, you know, as always with building future agendas, if there's something that you see that you're excited about or something you want to discuss, please bring it to Sarah, bring it to the executive committee to plan the agenda. And, thank you, everyone. This is really exciting. I'm excited about April 18th. This is gonna be fun. So, and that's part of this too, is to have fun, right? So, thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us, all those guests.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care. Bye.
Bye.